The city of Lagos glowed like 1,000 fireflies that night. From the 30th floor of the Horizon Towers, Michael Okafor could see the lights stretch far into the horizon, each one representing a life, a dream, a story. Yet, in the middle of that beauty, his heart felt hollow. He sat alone in his penthouse, where everything shimmered. The marble floors reflected the city's lights. A grand piano sat in the corner, untouched. The scent of expensive cologne and fine wine filled the air, but nothing could drown the silence that wrapped around him. On the table before him was a half-empty glass of champagne. The party had ended hours ago. Dozens of women had been there dressed in glittering gowns, laughing too loud, posing for pictures they'd never look at again. They had called him the dream man of Lagos. They had danced, toasted to his wealth, whispered in his ear. But now, as the night grew quiet, Michael realized something painful. None of them loved him. They loved the money. They loved the fame. Not him. He loosened his tie and leaned back, staring through the glass wall at the stars. His face, handsome, clean-shaven, and tired, stared back at him in the reflection. "This can't be love," he muttered under his breath. He remembered the last woman he'd dated. She told him she loved him after one dinner. The next morning, she sent her account number asking for 5 million naira. Another woman had claimed her rent was due, but he later found out she lived in a fully paid duplex in Lekki. Everyone wanted something. No one wanted him. Michael exhaled deeply, running a hand through his perfectly cut hair. Beneath the sharp suits, beneath the wristwatch worth more than a car, there was just a lonely man craving something money could never buy: honest affection. He reached for his phone and called his personal assistant, a calm woman named Mrs. Oluchi. "Cancel all my appointments for the month," he said softly. "Sir?" she asked, confused. "I need time away. Don't tell anyone where I am. Not even my mother." There was a long pause. "Understood, sir." Michael ended the call, stood up, and walked toward the mirror. For a long moment, he studied his reflection, the billionaire everyone wanted, the man who had everything except peace. That night, Michael Okafor disappeared. By morning, the city woke up to the news: the billionaire was missing. But Michael wasn't missing. He was only beginning a journey, one that would test the meaning of love, life, and truth in the raw corners of Lagos where no one knew his name. Amaka woke up before dawn, his heart pounding with excitement and fear. For the first time in 10 years, he wasn't waking up to the sound of automatic curtains sliding open or his butler's gentle knock. There was no scent of imported coffee or sight of polished marble floors. Instead, the room he slept in was small, damp, and plain. A single fan turned lazily on the ceiling, its blades coated with dust. He sat up, looking around the one-room apartment in Sarulea. The mattress on the floor was thin, and his designer wristwatch lay beside a plastic bucket filled with bathing water. It felt unreal, the contrast between this new life and his old one. But it was exactly what he needed. He dressed in faded overalls and slipped into rubber sandals. His face, once freshly shaved by professionals, now bore the roughness of a man who worked hard for survival. He tucked a worn cap low over his eyes, grabbed a lunch pack of rice and beans he had cooked himself, and stepped outside. The street was alive already, children in uniforms running to school, traders opening stalls, and the smell of fried akara mixing with the morning air. Amaka joined the crowd at the bus stop, blending in perfectly. Nobody recognized him. To everyone here, he was just another poor man trying to make ends meet. At the construction site in Yaba, he kept his head down and worked quietly. The other workers shouted, laughed, and cursed at one another, lifting cement blocks and mixing concrete under the burning sun. Sweat soaked through Amaka's shirt, but he didn't complain. For once, he felt free, no cameras, no expectations, no board meetings. Around noon, he sat with a few workers under a mango tree, sharing water from a sachet. "This job go kill person," one of them said, shaking his head. Amaka only smiled faintly. He wasn't supposed to reveal who he was or that the site, the whole company, even, belonged to him. He was here to learn, to see how real people lived and loved. After work, hungry and exhausted, he followed the others to a nearby roadside canteen. It was a small place made of wooden planks, with smoky pots and benches outside. The woman behind the counter was young, with soft brown skin and calm eyes that glowed even in the evening light. "Good evening, sir. What will you eat?" she asked with a gentle smile. Her name tag read Adeobi. Amaka hesitated. "Just rice and stew, please," he said, surprised by how kind her tone was. Most people usually ignored or mocked the construction workers for being dirty, but Adeobi served him like he was worth something. When she handed him his plate, their eyes met briefly. There was no judgment in her gaze, only sincerity. For some reason, Amaka felt something warm stir inside him. He ate quietly, watching her as she served others, always with that same calm grace. As the sky turned orange, he paid her and said softly, "Thank you. You're very kind." Adeobi smiled again. "Everyone deserves kindness," she replied. That night, back in his small room, Amaka lay awake staring at the ceiling fan. Her words echoed in his mind, "Everyone deserves kindness." It had been so long since anyone had treated him without motive or expectation. In his world of wealth, kindness often came with a price tag. He smiled faintly to himself. Tomorrow, he decided, he would go back to that canteen, not as a billionaire, but as the same dusty construction worker. The next few days followed a quiet rhythm. Amaka would rise before dawn, join the buses packed with tired workers, and spend hours lifting heavy blocks at the construction site. By evening, when the sun began to sink behind the tall buildings of Lagos, he would wash his hands, wipe his dusty face, and head straight to Adeobi's canteen. The small wooden stall had become a sanctuary for him. Amid the noise of car horns and laughter from customers, he found peace there. Adeobi always greeted him with a warm smile that made the day's exhaustion melt away. "Rice and beans again," she teased one evening as she dished food into a plate. He smiled, slightly embarrassed. "You already know my favorite." "Well," she said, laughing softly, "that's what happens when you come here every day." Amaka liked that laugh, light but filled with something honest. It wasn't the fake laughter of socialites or businesswomen he'd met at banquets. Hers carried warmth and truth. But beneath that smile, he sometimes saw a flicker of weariness, like someone carrying a weight too heavy for her small shoulders. One evening, as rain clouds gathered and customers rushed for shelter, Amaka noticed Adeobi sitting quietly behind her counter, her hands folded, her expression distant. He hesitated before speaking. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Adeobi looked up, startled, then forced a small smile. "Yes, I'm fine. Just tired." But Amaka didn't believe her. There was sadness in her tone. He sat down slowly, the smell of rain filling the air. "You can tell me if something's wrong," he said softly. "Maybe it'll feel lighter if you talk about it." She hesitated, studying him. Then, for the first time, she opened up. "My parents died 3 years ago," she said quietly. "It's just me and my younger brother now. He's in school in Nsukka. I'm trying to keep him there. I work here during the day and clean offices at night. Some days, it's hard to keep up." Emeka listened without interrupting. He had heard many stories of struggle, but hearing it from her lips made it real, the tremor in her voice, the quiet pride in her eyes as she spoke of her brother. She didn't complain, she simply told her truth. When he tried to pay for his meal that evening, Adeobi pushed the money back toward him. "You helped me listen," she said softly. "Take it as thanks. Besides, you don't eat much." He looked at the plate and saw she had added 2 extra pieces of meat. "But, please," she interrupted gently. "Let me." He nodded, feeling something tighten in his chest. No one had shown him such uncalculated kindness in years. Later that night, as he walked back through the wet streets, he saw a scene that made his blood boil. A man stood blocking Adeobi's path outside the canteen, his voice loud and harsh. "Ah, Adeobi, you think you're too good for me now because you sell food," the man sneered. "All these poor girls forming hard to get." Adeobi tried to move past him, but he grabbed her wrist. "Leave me alone, Chike," she cried. Without thinking, Emeka ran forward. "Hey! Let her go," he said sharply. Chike turned, laughing when he saw Emeka's dusty overalls. "And who are you? Another broke worker? Mind your business. I said, let her go." Emeka's voice was low but firm. Chike shoved him, but Emeka didn't back down. He stepped closer, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with anger. The confrontation drew attention, and a few bystanders began to watch. Finally, Chike released Adeobi with a snort and stormed off into the night. Adeobi stood frozen, her eyes wide. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "He's been disturbing me for weeks." Emeka smiled faintly. "You don't deserve to be treated like that." The rain began to fall again, soft, steady drops that glistened on her face. For a moment, they stood there in silence, the sound of water and faraway traffic surrounding them. Something shifted between them, a connection that neither could explain but both could feel. That night, when Emeka returned to his small room, he sat on the edge of his bed and thought of her, her strength, her kindness, her quiet pain. He had met countless women, but none like Adeobi. He didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of something that would change both their lives forever. Leave any comment below for us if you want this story to continue. Do not forget to tell us the country you are watching from. Thank you and remain blessed in Jesus' name.